All right. I know I talk a lot about like trans issues, and I know that I talk a lot about specifically some of the like negative news with trans issues. And that's not going to stop today because unfortunately that's all I have right now. Um but yeah, like we got to talk about some things. If you haven't been paying attention, the state of trans rights in the United States is, not doing so hot. There's some things, some states are going kind of wild, and I do want to kind of look at some of the news that I've seen like this week about things going on with regards to trans people. And yeah, so let's start here. North Car- North Carolina legislature overrides governor's vetoes to enact 3 bills targeting transgender youth. So this is something that has been more common recently, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about like why this matters and some quick notes. But yeah, so it's been the case recently that a lot of these bills that are targeting trans healthcare or trans youth or like bathroom bills or, you know, trans kids in sports, like a lot of these bills are being passed and then vetoed by their governors. Now, this is obviously is not happening in like every single state. There are several states where it's just going through, and there are several states where they're like not, even getting passed. But in some states, they are they are going through and then getting overridden and then or getting vetoed and then overridden. This actually happened in my state in Indiana. They passed the anti-trans sports bill, and Governor Holcomb actually said no. He like vetoed it because he correctly identified that it was a non-issue. But then the Indiana state legislature just overrode the veto, and that's what's happening here in North Carolina. They actually did it for 3 bills though, not just one. So that should tell you something. The House and Senate's override votes, which passed largely along party lines, mean that bills that ban gender affirming care for minors, restrict how gender identity can be discussed in schools, and prohibit trans athletes from competing on girls' sports teams are now law in the state. The legislation bans doctors in the state from providing gender affirming care to minors, even if there is parental consent. Under the new legislation, medical professionals are prohibited from performing surgical gender transition procedures, prescribing puberty blocking drugs, and providing hormone treatments for those under the age of 18, though there are extremely limited exceptions for certain disorders. If a doctor breaks the law, the bill calls for their medical license to be revoked. Legislation also creates a 25-year window after former patients turn 18 to file civil action against doctors and their employers for perceived damages related to gender affirming care. The new restrictions would not apply to any child who began treatment before August 1st if a doctor determines their care to be medically necessary and if they have parental. Gender affirming care spans a range of evidence based treatments and approaches that benefit transgender and non binary people. The types of care vary by age and goals of the recipient. By the way, based journalism on CNN here. Um, HB 574 bans trans girls and women from competing on middle school, high school, and college sports teams that align with their gender identity. The bill states that a student's sex shall be recognized based solely on the student's reproductive biology and genetics at birth, and would require sports team to be designated as for males, men or boys, females, women or girls, or co-ed or mixed. The bill specifies that students of the male sex cannot play on girls' sports teams, but does not address transgender boys playing on boys' teams. This is an unwarranted attack on trans youth, regardless of if that is the intent. The effect of this bill will make these already vulnerable young people feel more different than they already do, said State Senator Julie Mayfield. So, yeah. So this is what just went through with North Carolina. Um, Obviously, all of these things are bad, but I want to go through some of the things here. So to to the conservatives that might be uh you know celebrating this, I would like to note a couple of things here. So, for one, we're talking about so the legislation bans doctors in the state, even if there's parental consent. I would like to know what happened to parents' rights, and that's of course the answer is that they don't actually care about parental rights because it was never about parental rights or about protecting children. It is just about erasing trans people. That is it. That is the whole goal. It has nothing to do with either of those things. Anyone who tries to tell you that there is a parental rights issue or that there is a protection of children issue is lying to you. They are just liars. They are actually lying. As far as the like trans sports bills, by the way, again, we have a parental rights issue because parents could consent to that. We also have an issue of again the whole scare that like trans women competing in girl sports is like going to be dangerous for cis girls is unfounded. Like literally, it actually is, and also like they mentioned, doesn't they never address trans men? By the way, like they never address trans men. So yes, this happened. I also want to point something out though, right? Okay. They had to override this veto. Like they had to take that step. I need you all to understand that in this like absolute like shit pile that we're being given, this is still there's still like a silver lining there in the broad scheme, right? Obviously this sucks at the individual level and we should do our best to try to get this reversed. If you're in North Carolina, you should look into candidates that are trans affirming and will fight to reverse this legislation, especially like gubernatorial candidates or state legislature. You should look for those candidates. You should write them. You should try to volunteer for them if you can, or you should you know promote their campaigns, get people to vote for them so that this shit can be reversed. However, also on the like broader scale, the fact that the state legislature had to go through the entire process of fucking overriding a veto again kind of shows that like this is still a death rattle of an ideology. Like they're literally like hanging on to threads. They have to go through this much effort to get one thing. And granted, it sucks that they're doing it. It sucks that they're actually like succeeding in any way. But it is still good for us that they have to keep putting in this amount of effort. We have to keep like the pressure on. It's such a non-issue and it's only being propped up out of spite. Yep, true. Then I want to go kind of into the other thing. So we talked a little bit about like trans girls in sports, and that kind of brings me to the next thing that I was, seeing. And that is this stupid fucking thing. World Chess Body bars trans women from competing in women's events because apparently there's some biological advantage to being a man playing chess. Like what? Can somebody please please let me know. Can you let me like please? Exactly. What is the biological advantage that I have with my XY chromosomes? Now, first of all, and let's hear their words, real quick, and then we'll do it. Okay, so in its guidelines for transgender competitors released Monday, the International Chess Federation, or FIDE, said players that have transitioned from male to female have no right to compete in the game against cisgender women or those who are not trans until its officials complete, quote, further analysis of the issue. The governing body gave itself a timeline of no more than 2 years. Guidelines also state that women's titles currently held by trans male competitors are to be abolished and can be transferred to a general title of the same or lower level. Federation said if a trans male competitor changes the gender back to a woman, the women's titles can be. So I would like to know. They want to like do a review of the situation, right? They want to do further analysis of the issue of trans athletes competing in sports. Um, what is my biological advantage? What like also like can I know what the biological advantage I have? Is it chromosomal? Is it hormonal? Like I don't where is because I'm dumb as shit. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm like fucking stupid, and I don't know if I need to be like competing like against if like what. So also in theory, like if we're going by this logic, right? Like you know biological males or whatever supposedly have some sort of advantage against cis women. Um, should like HRT, like if they're like actively transitioning on HRT, should that like not erase the advantage here, considering we're talking about them like literally like transitioning in a way that brings their hormonal levels and biological components a little bit closer to that of a cis woman? Like wouldn't that like if women are so fucking like stupid that they can't compete against um like if women are so fucking stupid that they can't compete against men, and we're going under the assumption here that like a trans woman would be like the man in this scenario, right? If they can't compete, like shouldn't the trans women like be dumber because they're taking estrogen? Please don't clip any of this out of context. I know you're going to, and I implore you, please don't. Like I'm trying to understand the logic here. It's just purely based on statistics. For whatever reason, men place higher than women on chess ladders, but there's some information that suggests it's purely psychological. I mean, like, there, yeah, Storm. That's the other thing. Um, like erasing trans men's records because they transitioned and being like, well, if you transition back, you can have your title back. What the fuck? This is just like this is misogyny. All like it's just misogyny, like all the way. Like at every level, where it's just misogyny all the way down. Like yeah, I guess we need just more femboys in chess. But like it literally like all of this is just misogyny, by the way. Like it's misogyny at every like level. It's like it's transphobia and misogyny like simultaneously. They've like cozied up together and they're just like, you know, these two things. Like obviously transphobic to bar trans players from playing in chess. There's literally no reason there should be like any kind of biological component. Like we like even if even if there's like some statistic out there, and I'm sure there is, I'm sure there's a statistic that says like, men have higher IQs, or that like men like Momoka said that like men place higher than women in chess like leagues, but like I imagine there's a lot of social reasons behind that. There almost always is when we're talking about shit like this. There's always a social reason. Like this is the same logic that will end up we always end up hearing with like, statistics about race when it comes to IQ. Like so it's misogynistic in the sense that like we're assuming women are dumb and can't compete against men. And then we're also assuming that trans women um we're also like not understanding how transition works. We're also not under like we're assuming that trans women would have some sort of biological advantage. Then we're also being misogynistic towards trans men because we're just treating them like women, but then like women that I guess lost their way or something. And then yeah, it's just like every layer of this is just misogyny. I really did just kind of want to dunk on this a little bit because like I don't really have much like actual commentary to make outside of that. The point here is that this stuff sucks. It is really really fucking stupid to see all this shit, and we should be upset about it. Not to just like dumb down my commentary. No, for real though. Like I said with the North Carolina thing, the silver lining is that they have to keep jumping through all of these hoops to try to remove like trans people from existence. Like and that is their goal, by the way. Don't let anyone like convince you of that when we're talking about trans people in sports, like with the chess thing or with the girls like sports teams. When we're talking about, the gender affirming care for minors, when we're talking about the, forced outing bills and the dead naming ones, and we've got like I think Kansas had passed one that was going to like literally reverse changes to birth certificates for trans people. We've got like, all of these things like the Don't Say Gay bill, like those things. Don't buy into the narrative that they're just protecting children, that they're just, protecting women's sports. They don't give a fuck about women's sports. No one gives a fuck about women's sports. No one has ever given a fuck about women's sports until it was a convenient excuse to erase trans people. Don't let them convince you that they care about the children. They don't give a fuck about children. They actually do not care about children. They have like negative care towards children. They hate children. And there's nothing they like more than disliking children. They don't care. It's not about caring for children. It's not about protecting women's sports. It's all about erasing trans people. Because ultimately, conservatives are a death cult. They want all of us dead. They don't care. Don't let them convince you otherwise. That's it. That's what I got here for this segment because my brain is fried. But yeah, like on the North Carolina thing, if you live in North Carolina, I implore you, call your legislators, write them letters, find progressive candidates, try to, work with them. If you can volunteer, like if you can do phone banking or if you can do like social media marketing or if you can do like any kind of like canvassing, if you can do anything to volunteer for like progressive candidates to try to get more progressives in office in North Carolina so that shit like this doesn't happen, do that. Like there are tons of ways that you can get involved in order to make sure that this kind of shit doesn't continue to happen. The thing with like women's sports, like the chess thing, obviously, the thing that we've got to do is just like put pressure on these people. Like they need to be made fun of and they need to be feeling backlash until they reverse this. Because this like shit is dumb as fuck.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can become a channel member by clicking the join button, leave a super chat or a super thanks. You can become a patron at patreon.com/SaigeAlexis, or you could donate to my coffee. The link for that will be in the description below. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.